So my name is Jim Keady, and I am running for the United States House of Representatives to represent the people of New Jersey's Fighting Fourth District. I am certain that everyone here today, that we are all committed to a bold, progressive agenda. How many people here believe in science?
Yeah!
Science, yes. Crazy you gotta ask in 2018. But we believe in science, we believe that climate change is real. We believe that we need to be pushing back against the fossil fuel industry, and at the same time, making massive investments in wind and solar and tidal and geothermal, so that not only do we have a green energy revolution, but we also create millions and millions of good-paying jobs for working families across these United States. How many people here believe that women's rights are human rights? And that's why we have to ensure that we push back against this GOP that wants to overturn Roe v. Wade, wants to close the Planned Parenthoods. In fact, the guy who's representing our district right now, not only does he want to overturn Roe v. Wade and close Planned Parenthood, he doesn't believe that women should have access to the birth control pill or the IUD. So this is why we have to stand up and fight against the GOP. How many people here believe that health care is a human right? Along with each one of you, myself and Peter are committed to fighting for H.R. 676, the expanded and improved Medicare for All Act, day one. If we have the pleasure of serving in Congress. How many people here believe that in the same way that we guarantee public education from K to 12, that it is time now for our nation to guarantee public education from K to 16? Right? Which means tuition-free college at our public universities around the United States. How many believe that you should get a fair day's pay for a fair day's work? And that is why we are all committed to the fight for 15. We need a $15 federal minimum wage. How many believe that we need federal common sense gun safety legislation? And we are seeing the youth of our nation be the conscience of our nation on this issue, and they will lead us to the promised land on this, forcing us to push back against the NRA and making sure we get that legislation in place so that kids can go to school and feel safe and not be afraid they're going to be dodging bullets on any given day. And how many of you believe that we need to get the big money out of politics?
Yeah!
We need to take back our democracy from the big corporations and the billionaires and put the power back in the hands of the people. Now, how many of you believe this stuff in 2016? Believe it in 2016 as well? Yes. And how many of you volunteered for Senator Sanders in 2016? All right. I was lucky enough to be a delegate for Senator Sanders at the National Convention. I was actually in the 3% of people who knew who Bernie was before he started running for president. I was lucky enough to meet Bernie back in 2001. He was the keynote speaker, and I was a featured presenter at a conference on labor rights for 8th graders in Brattleboro, Vermont. Wow. And what I love about Senator Sanders, the same stuff he was preaching to those 8th graders 17 years ago is the same stuff he is saying today. It's that consistency, that authenticity, the commitment to the bold progressive values that we all share that gets us back in these rooms. But what I also love about Bernie is that he recognized that this is not about a man or a woman, that this is about a movement. Right. It's not about trying to capture a moment and ride a blue wave in 2018. It's about building a bold, progressive, unapologetic movement to take back power from the oligarchs and put it in the hands of the American people. Why I am running for Congress. We got enough people down in Washington, D.C. that represent the billionaires and the giant corporations. It's time that everyday people in the 4th District and around the state of New Jersey had someone who is squarely in the middle class, who runs a Main Street family business, bringing our bold, progressive, democratic ideals to bear on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. Now, this is not my first rodeo. I have served in local office. I was proudly a councilman of the city of Asbury Park. And very generally, when I served in Asbury, I was fighting for the people on the west side of town who had not had a voice on that council dais for decades. I've also been engaged in grassroots campaigns around our district, around the state, and around the nation, and internationally as well. Some of you may know me as the guy that refused to sit down and shut up when Governor Christmas started acting. We made it clear to the governor on that day we would never sit down and shut up, and we're making it clear to the GOP that no one in this room will ever sit down and shut up. We will always stand up and fight for the people of New Jersey. I've also been very engaged in our labor rights community here in our state, whether it was in 2016 with the CWA and the IBEW workers standing on the line, pushing back against Verizon to make sure they got a good contract, or just last year in 2017. I mentioned my family's had a bar for 35 years. I've been running for the last 4 since my father passed away. On a Friday afternoon in the late spring of last year, the Teamsters were in good negotiations, good faith negotiations with the management. And on a Friday afternoon, by fiat, the management cut negotiations, cut their pay, ended their health benefits, 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I was the first bar owner in the state of New Jersey that refused deliveries from the scab drivers that were driving around the door and force products. I've also been involved in international labor rights advocacy. I'll tell you a quick story. Back in the late 90s, I was a professional soccer player, and I was a Division I college coach. And I was coaching at St. John's University in New York City. At the time, the NCAA Division I national champions. You know how Villanova just won the basketball championship? That was us for soccer in 97, 96, and into 97. While I was coaching, I was doing a grad degree in theology, and I started writing a paper about the Nike Corporation and their labor practices, and led what's called Catholic social teaching. And what I found was if you wanted to pick a company that violated everything we stood for, Nike was it. And at the same time, I'm learning this over in theology, over in athletics. The University Athletic Department is negotiating a $3.5 million endorsement deal with Nike. Part of that deal I had to wear and promote the products. I tried to negotiate myself out of the deal behind the scenes for about a year. Eventually I took a public stand and I said I will not and cannot be a walking advertisement for a company that is exploiting mostly poor women of color in developing countries around the world. And I was told, you wear Nike and drop this or get out. I held my ground. I became the first athlete and still the only athlete in the world to say no to Nike on an endorsement deal over the sweatshop issue. And that was big news. And I started getting invited to college campuses like this to talk about the issue. And in those early audiences, I would have the market fundamentalists from the business school saying, you don't know what you're talking about, those are great jobs for those poor people, and what else would they be doing if Nike wasn't there? And $1 a day doesn't seem like a lot here, but it's great there. Now, I knew from my research they were wrong. The competitive athlete in me wanted to prove them wrong. So in the summer of 2000, I moved 13,000 miles to the other side of the world from New Jersey and went and lived in Tangerang, Indonesia, an industrial slum outside of the capital, Jakarta, and for 1 month I tried to survive on a Nike sweatshop wage. At the time it was $1.25 a day. I lost 25 pounds in 1 month trying to survive on a Nike sweatshop wage, sleeping on a cement floor with rats and cockroaches. And I met the mostly young women that made the stuff that I wore as an athlete my whole life. And I promised them, I'll go home, I'll tell your stories, I'll advocate for you. And I thought I was going to do that for like a 6 or 7 week speaking tour. I did it full time for 15 years, speaking at more than 500 campuses in 43 different states in 3 different countries. In 2016, when Senator Sanders was leading the fight against the TPP, I did a project in collaboration with one of his staffers in Move On and Credo, went on a clandestine mission to Vietnam, met with the underground labor movement, democracy movement there, to bring back the truth of what was really going on, and the story that they didn't hear, and that they weren't getting from our corporate-led, the State Department-led negotiating teams about what was happening. And I poured nearly 20 years of my life into this issue. And sometimes people say, Jim, it's great. Some people are actually standing up, and it's honorable, but hey, I don't live in Indonesia. I live in New Jersey, in the 4th District. What are you going to do for me? And it's a legitimate question. And what I say back is, if first, you know the kinds of stands I'm willing to take and the personal sacrifice I'm willing to make to stand up for truth and justice and what we believe in. And second, if you thought it was enough for me to go halfway around the world and fight for people who I don't speak their language, it's not my culture, it's not where I grew up, imagine how hard I will fight for the people of the Fighting For district where I was born, went to grammar school, taught a few in high schools. My family lives there. I'm raising my family there. And I've only got to drive 3.5 hours down to Washington, D.C. We got to win. We have to win this race. Here's how we're going to do it. In the 4th District, Congressman Smith, we call him No-Show Smith because he hasn't lived in New Jersey since 1983, hasn't had an open public town hall meeting in 25 years. Senior year of college for me, 1993, it's his last town hall meeting. He wins in midterm elections with 120,000 votes. 120,000 is his win number. Whoever the Democrat has been in every midterm in the last 3 or 4 cycles, you know how many votes they got? 55,000. Do you know how many registered Democrats we have in the 4th District? 132,000. We got 77,000 people from our base who are out in the wilderness every 2 years. You know how many unaffiliated voters that we have? 220,000. 110,000 of whom have not voted in 1 out of the last 3 elections. And the traditional wisdom of the establishment Dems is, you can't go after them. The guy I'm running against in the Democratic primary said those 80,000 Dems and unaffiliateds that Jim wants to get to his win number, we don't have the time to go after them. So he's center-right Republican light going after 30% of Smith's voters. And I said, you know, guys who are running to get Republican votes, there's a word for them. Republicans. You're in the wrong party. So we together need to fire up that base of our 132,000 Democrats. We need to appeal and fire up enough of those unaffiliated voters. The guy I'm running against talks about going after those Republicans. I'm more concerned about going after the 67,000 people in the 4th District that live below the poverty line. That's who we should be fighting for as Democrats. That's where our ideals are. And here's how we're going to win in the 4th District. Here's how Peter's going to win in his district. I want you to repeat after me. We organize.
We organize.
We knock on doors.
We knock on doors.
We make phone calls.
We make phone calls.
We take this moment.
We take this moment.
We build a movement.
We build a movement.
And we win.
And we win.
And we win.
And we win.
And we win. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keady. I am running for the United States House of Representatives in the 4th District, and I hope to earn all of your support.